All right, let's take a look at how we can go and make this game first of all. So first things first is you want to think of some kind of aesthetic. Now, there's a lot of games out there that actually have really simple art and are actually really fun to play. I highly recommend that you go down this road first before you start adding in a ton of art. Now, if you're an artist, because a lot of artists like to make games, I would suggest working on game mechanics first and adding art later. The problem with art is that you need to have animation. And the problem with animation is that there are companies out there that make $1 million movies with animation, and they set the bar so high that the public has a certain expectation. And that expectation, because it's so high, can make your game not as fun to play because they'll think, well, the animation isn't as good. And those companies do that completely on purpose because they have the money to employ the best people, and the best people can make the product the best. It's just simple. It's just simple business. So if you can make a very simple game, and if you look at retro games are really good for this. They make really simple graphics, yet these graphics are they do put out the right message, and they give the right response to what you're trying to do. So what we're going to do first is we're going to create a background. Now I'm going to go and I'm going to double click and I'm going to create a sprite here. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put an off black here. Now when it comes down to this here, now I'm just actually going to make this a lot bigger so you can see it. So this color palette's pretty cool here. Now when it comes to making anything that deals with black or white, I always like to make sure that it's a little bit off black, right? And a little bit off white too. So for example, if you wanted to, let's say I'm going to drag this all the way down to gray. If you wanted to make something that was more like this, and you can see all of the options here, by the way, or if it was completely black, your brain does notice a difference. Okay, so I'm actually going to leave this maybe about here. Now another thing you can do is, and here's a little tip, if you want to give a dark background, which we are going to do, by the way, we're going to give a dark background. You don't necessarily have to make it black. The whole point of it is to be dark, not black. And there's a difference between that. And what you can do is you can actually make it a blue, but you can make it a very dark blue. Okay, and this, if you look really closely, is still dark blue. You can do this with any color. You can make it dark green, and they all have just a little bit of a difference between each one. You can make it a very dark red, right? And red's a little bit harder to do, but you can do it. So even though there's just a little bit of a hint of red, your brain will notice the difference. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to make this almost black here. Okay, and once you close that here, and one thing that you need to do, we'll just kind of move this over back here, is the reason why it's small is because, and by the way, you have to click the paint button here, and I'm going to simply put that in here. It's not black. In fact, maybe just a little bit more to the light side. So you can see that that's dark gray, but something more like that. There we go. And that's going to be the background here. Now, in order to make this the background, I'm just going to kind of drag this here, and we'll take a look at the position, and we can kind of, if this size is 250, watch what happens when we type in the position as 250, okay? Not quite as much as we want here. So we're just going to kind of drag this here, and we're going to kind of move it out here. Now, generally when you're working with sprites like this, what you don't want to do is, and by the way, I'm pushing Control plus my mouse wheel here. What you don't want to do is you don't want to, when you're working with sprites, you don't want to resize it like this. The only way we can resize it is because it's one color. And that's what I mean by going simple, is that if it's simple, then it can work here. And you'll also notice if I zoom in as much as I can, the sides here have a little bit of a gradient. That's just the way Construct 2 is, and it's something you have to keep in mind here. Now, this is a huge resolution. Now, I'm going to hop into my Layers tab here, and this here is going to be my background. Okay, and I'm going to lock it, and the reason why I'm going to lock it is very simple, is because now we can't play around with this if we don't want to here. So I'm going to add another layer here, and these layers are really important to actually make to make your game here. You can put layers, and we'll talk a little bit more about why they're so important. Thanks for listening, and this concludes the tutorial.